Okay, gotta force this one out. The last Treehouse of Horror we'll discuss deserves an upload that is perhaps similarly disappointing. It isn't that terrible, but it is certainly far from fantastic. So we begin with the first segment, not one of their best, not quite one of their worst, or at least there are worse segments. Homer as the Grim Reaper. After a more zany than creepy opening scene, Homer eventually becomes deaf, assuming the duties of the Grim Reaper, and this is the bulk, the solid section of this story, and it presents a tense plot development when Homer has to kill Marge, although the payoff is fairly cheap and rather unsatisfying. Decent to observe the sadism that Homer displays as death, or perhaps just murderous callousness, but otherwise I don't think anyone remembers this as one of the best Treehouse of Horror segments. However, the next segment is an improvement. Frankenstein is very creepy, or it was to me when I was young. Frink's father was a spooky character, viciously killing some familiar characters and nameless scientists alike, scooping out their brains and placing them atop, fusing them with his own. It features a creepy yet pacifying off the fret ending. It featured memorable imagery. It was a fairly strong segment overall, but not really one of their best efforts. One notices that Frink becomes a semi-frequent device in Treehouse of Horrors around this time, having invented the teleporter set featured for Fly vs. Fly, inventing a time machine in the dreadful Fright to Creep, and now able to resurrect his father as a Frankenstein's monster in this one, Frankenstein. He explains the third dimension in Homer Cubed. He appears as a turkey about to be eaten by Hibbert and his guests in an island of Dr. Hibbert, though that's less for him acting as the conjurer of a magical device. His Tooth World equivalent shrinks Lisa to their size. Most amusingly, perhaps, and influentially, it is his question which inspires Lucy Lawless's famous answer, "A wizard did it." And Frankenstein is a pretty solid segment all in all, I suppose we ought to be grateful. But then this one is a solid piece of work. Stop the World, I Want to Goof Off, a classic piece of Swartzwelder. All of this episode is credited to Swartzwelder, the latter two segments most feel it. One can imagine this segment existing within the first 10 seasons. It is very rich. One is almost surprised they didn't attempt it prior. Both the hijinks of Bart and Milhouse playing with this dangerous technology, and them accidentally destroying the device, saving their lives in that moment, and then leaving them stranded and miserable forever, years of life passing by before they finally repair the watch and restore the world to normal, that being now all they want. I found the segment riveting when I was young, and I'm still impressed with it now. A really strong piece of work, one of the best post-season 10 Treehouse of Horrors, maybe the best, though I didn't mention it when I listed some of those in the previous upload. Whatever the case, I'm glad I can end this retrospective and my reviewing assessment on a very strong note. Just for a moment, I'd like to discuss some of the Treehouse of Horrors which came afterward, the ones which I remember seeing anyway. The next TOH is a rather decent Ned Dead Zone segment, but the Jack the Ripper and Fantastic Voyage pieces afterward are rather disappointing by comparison. I like the AI segment in 16, but the next two segments are rubbish. 17 is just shithouse in my opinion. 18 isn't as bad, but not too impressive. 19 was pretty crap. 20 is a little better. The first segment, The Strangers on the Train Crisscross Homage, is the best of them easily. Of 21, I remember the Dead Calm parody most. That was okay. I remember a bit of the board game segment, and unfortunately a bit of their hacky bandwagon Twilight piece. 22 I barely remember, have barely seen any of that. Never saw 23, so I'll stop commenting from here. And we'll close it here. Thanks everyone for suffering through this if you have for some reason chosen to.